And I went to those guys, to the beef checkoff, and I said, hey, look, we want to spend a little bit of money to do a study on beef versus diabetes because we know the results are going to be. The people are they're going to go on an all-meat diet or close to all-meat diet, and their diabetes is going to go away. It's simple, and it takes all the confusion out. Because whenever you do, you hear all these dietary studies, it's like, oh, but he was eating hamburgers and French fries, and there's all this confounder. Right. So it's like you can't really test it. I'm like, the perfect way to test if meat is healthy or not is to just put them on a damn carnivore diet and see what happens.
It's the only way to test it. Because if you do an epidemiology study and you don't account for sugar, sugary drink, Coca-Cola, bread, pasta, lasagna.
Yeah, that's what Harvard did recently. They didn't account for sugar intake when they said beef causes diabetes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! You're not even counting sugar.
That's so crazy.
Right, but they get this published, and this is really bad science, And guys like John Anitis, who's one of the most cited scientists in the world, has basically said all this epidemiology we're doing, we're just wasting money. It's not telling us anything. This is all garbage. But they keep doing it over and over again because they generate headlines. The headlines they want. But anyway, back to this beef checkoff thing. So I said, hey, look, every year you award money, hundreds of thousands, tens of millions of dollars to promote beef. I said, let's get a little bit of money to do a research study on diabetes. And they literally said, no, we're not interested in doing that. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The beef industry is taking a beating right now. You listen to it, it's like, everybody wants to get rid of beef. The cow farts are boiling the oceans, and it's going to kill you. It's going to give you cancer, which all of it's just largely nonsense. And this is, in my view, this type of study would clearly demonstrate that not only does beef not cause diabetes. In fact, I talked to the CEO of the NCBA 2 years ago. I sat down, I presented in front of the California Cattlemen's Association, and literally the president of the association stood up and said, I went on a carnivore diet and cured my diabetes. It's like, yeah, it's clear. And the guy said, yeah, I get it. We're going to help you out. We're going to get this going. I heard nothing from these guys. So what I think is going on is the USDA kind of oversees all these checkoffs, and they just kind of say, look, you can't say that because we want to promote, because again, they have all these processed food lobbies, Nabisco and PepsiCo sitting on they're on the board, and they're like, if we promote this one food and people stop eating all this processed food, right, then what are we going to do? We're going to lose a lot of money. You think about it, not that I'm advocating that everybody go on a carnivore diet, because I don't think it's necessary for one, but if you significantly cut back on all these people consuming all this garbage, what does that do economically to this country? I mean, you think about how much money is spent on garbage food, the drugs that are needed to treat that. You're talking, we spend $4.3 trillion a year on healthcare in this country, and what do we get for it? We got one of the sickest populations in the world. Our life expectancy is going down. Everybody's fat. Everybody's depressed. Everybody's on drugs. It's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's crazy that they don't look to diet as being the primary cause of that. Or if they do, they look to these epidemiology studies that don't take into account exactly what you're eating with the meat. Why is it meat that's always demonized?
Well, I think for a number of reasons. One, if you go back to like dietetics in the beginning, like back in 1917, the American Dietetics Association was formed. This was formed literally by Seventh-day Adventists. So that from the very, very beginning, the creation of the nutrition science field, these Seventh-day Adventists who are, religiously vegetarians. You go back to the Kellogg's brothers, John Harvey Kellogg, where he's out there, circumcising females and saying we can't eat meat because it's going to make you have sex and make you have lust and masturbate. This is all like this religious stuff. And then it got
people don't know that, but they should know that he developed this cereal, this bland cereal, to discourage masturbation, which is one of the wildest things I have ever heard.
Yeah, that guy was a wacko, man. He was in there
dude.
He was giving himself like high pressure enemas every day. It was just like fucking 20 gallons a minute enemas because he thought that was something. Yeah, he was a wacko. He was a really nutty guy. You read about some of his
20-gallon enemas?
It was some ridiculous, like super high capacity, like a super soaker on steroids thing. Just,
are enemas bad for you? Because I've always wondered if your internal gut flora is important, and it is. Isn't that getting washed out?
I think to some degree it is. I don't know that anybody's really looked at it from that angle, but I think in some cases, like some people's got some problems with constipation, it could be helpful, but I don't think it's generally a healthy practice for most. But I know there's people that are like putting weird stuff up their butt. Man, it's just kind of like
I think it probably feels good. It might flushed out.
It might.
Well, it also makes you see everything come out of you. I guess I've never done it, but apparently there's a tube, and they look at it. Oh, look, here's your problems.
Yeah, it's kind of like these. there's this thing these crazy vegans do where they consume like this charcoal and this jelly and stuff, and they this kind of gruel mix, and then it kind of like fills up their intestines, and they poop it all out, and they say that's clearing out all my intestines. I can't remember what they call it, but it's like there's these crazy videos where they're just pulling all this like gelatinous black stuff out of their butt, but it's like you just ate all that stuff. That's what's coming out of you. It's not
look all the toxins.
Yeah, exactly.
You just ate that, stupid.
You just ate the same toxins.
People are
you
obsessed with that term, like releasing the toxins.
Yeah.
You know, they really think that that's what's happening when you sweat. You get in the sauna, you're releasing the toxins. Like when you're sweating, your body's regulating your heat temperature. Yeah, that's what's going on. You know what clears your toxins? Your fucking liver.
Yeah.
That's what that thing's for.
Yeah, liver, kidneys. Yeah, we got a pretty good detox system for
Yeah.
sure. You don't need all the smoothie, juice fast detoxes. You know, it's like some of the people that are detoxing when their teeth fall out. They're detoxing their teeth.
Well, the other thing is with the smoothie thing is, my God, you're getting so much sugar, and you're getting it in a weird form.
Yeah.
If you're eating fruit smoothies, you're getting sugar in a very unnatural form. Fruit juices, we used to think that fruit juices are really good for you. Most doctors would agree that fruit juices are very high in sugar.
Yeah.
And to get it in that sort of liquid dose where it just goes right into your fucking bloodstream and your liver, that's a lot of sugar, man.
Well, you think about it because, Joe, you're out hunting all the time, and when you're going out and you're like, if I had to get food out here, what would I have available to eat? I can tell you what you wouldn't have all this processed food, but particularly like powder. Like we make powdered sugar, we make powdered flour, and we combine them together, but we've changed the nature of the food so much that it's interesting. I saw Darius Mozaffarian, who's a researcher at Tufts, he's the guy to put out the study that says, or was part of the study that said, Lucky Charms are healthier than eggs. You saw that
Yes.
last year. That's total BS, right?
Hilarious.
But one thing he did point out was that over the last 20 years or so, we haven't really been eating much more calories than we were. Like from the 1960s to about 2000, we ate more calories, and maybe that explains why everybody got fat. But since that time, we really haven't eaten much more, but we've eaten so much more ultra-processed food. And in fact, right now, the U.S. diet is close to 70% ultra-processed, which you think about, that's like crazy, and our kids are getting fat. But one thing that's interesting is because you're talking about the microbiome, right, our gut flora. When you eat like whole food, it goes farther down your digestive tract, and then our microbiome actually consumes some of that. Up to 22% of our calories can be consumed by our microbiome. But when you're just eating sugar, it goes straight in you. So those calories, your gut microbiome doesn't get any of that. So it's like you're absorbing more calories. So just by changing the quality of the food, you're changing how many calories you absorb, and that is what some people say is part of what leads to this obesity thing. But we know, like for instance, here's another thing: the USDA came out with a study 3 months ago. 91% processed food diet is healthy. This is what they're pushing, trying to get us, because they're trying to position us to say.
What was this study?
This was the USDA put it out. It was probably, I think it was the Nova study. I might have that on there, Jamie, but it's basically because there's starting to be backlash against ultra processed foods. I mean, like South America is starting to ban this stuff, which I think I'm not for banning food. I mean, I think that gets into freedom of choice and things like that. So you shouldn't ban. Just like you can still smoke if you want to. It's not the best for you, so you don't want to do that. But at the same point, they're saying like this stuff there's a lot of backlash, and like people like myself and probably you and others just saying, look, this ultra-processed garbage is literally killing us. It's making us crazy. It's making us depressed. All these people with mental health disorders, a lot of that nutrition is part of that, and we can talk about that. But, what they're seeing is there's a backlash against that. Yeah, so that's a Nova
Dietary guidelines meet Nova, developing a menu for a healthy dietary pattern using ultra-processed foods.
So they're basically saying, hey, how do we make people eat more processed food and make it quote-unquote healthy? And they showed that they could make a diet that's like 91% ultra-processed foods and still be quote-unquote healthy.
Look at what it says here. It says the purpose of this proof of concept study was to determine the feasibility of building a menu that aligns with the recommendations for a healthy dietary pattern from the 2020 DGA and includes a over 80%, what is that, KCAL? Kilocalories from UPF, ultra-processed foods, as defined by Nova, designed to accomplish this objective. We first developed a list of foods that fit Nova criteria for UPF, ultra-processed foods, fit within a dietary patterns in the 2020 DGA and are commonly consumed by Americans. We then use these foods to develop what is that, 7D? What does that mean?
7 day.
7-day 2,000 kilocalorie menu modeled on the My Pyramid sample menus and assess this menu for nutrient content as well as for diet quality using the Healthy Eating Index. The results in the ultra-processed DGA menu that was created, 91% of the kilocalories were from ultra-processed food or NOVA Category 4. The HEI 215 score was 86 out of a possible 100 points. The sample menu did not achieve a perfect score due primarily to excess sodium and an insufficient amount of whole grains. This menu provided adequate amounts of all macro and micronutrients except vitamin D, vitamin E, and choline. Conclusions. Healthy dietary patterns can include most of their energy from ultra-processed foods, still receive a high diet quality score, and contain adequate amounts of most macro and micronutrients. Boy.
Right. So remember, USDA, the guys that go there, they leave USDA and they go sit on the board of directors at Nabisco and PepsiCo. And so this is really, I think, what this is. It's positioning us as a society to accept that ultra-processed foods are our food. It's really human pet food. I mean, you see what happens to our pets.
Yes.
And everybody's fat, so we're going to still eat. We're going to say, well, it's still okay. If it's okay if you eat your human dog chow or your human chow, just keep doing that. Don't ask questions. And oh, by the way, here's an Ozempic shot or a semaglutide shot. Semaglutide shot will give you to kind of keep you chilled out. So it's really, I mean, it's almost sinister in a way.
It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre that this isn't challenged. And that shows you how captured our food industry really is. The fact that that's not challenged, the fact that our health guidelines aren't set on, hey, what you should be eating is what human beings are designed to eat in nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which is real food.
I mean, my opinion on dietary guidelines, because we have a USDA that meets every 5 years. And by the way, so the USDA dietary guidelines panel, did you see there's a physician from Harvard named Fatima Stamford, right? And she went on 60 Minutes and said, obesity has nothing to do with diet. It has nothing to do with exercise. It's all disease and genetic, and there's nothing you can literally do. And she's also sponsored by Novo Nordisk, who makes Ozempic, right? And she's on there. And she's also a member of the U.S. Dietary Guidelines panel. So 95% of the people that sit on the U.S. Dietary Guidelines panel today, for this next one where they're going to come up for the 2025 guidelines, all have financial ties to processed food companies.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you think about it, it's just like, this is crazy. So
wild.
So if you go to like Brazil's dietary guidelines, or at least the one they released a few years ago, it was like, here's what you should do. Cook at home, don't eat processed foods, and eat with people around that you love. And that is their recommendation, which I think is better than our guidelines because, I mean, if left to our own, we are now being told we got to eat all this garbage, and it's just making us sick. It's crazy.